6 seasons as a backcountry ranger in the North Cascades, and that day I was walking up to a shelter register nobody had signed in 11 days. 12 degrees, 8 inches of new snow since dawn, still coming down light. Mine was the only vehicle at the trailhead, which in February is normal and is also the reason I do that route alone. I signed the register, noted the time, and started back down. Half a mile below the shelter, I heard the second set of boots. Off to my left, a half pace out, breaking crust the same way mine did. My first thought was the obvious one. Somebody came up behind me. So I called out, said hello, said I was with the Forest Service. Nobody answered. The footsteps kept going. Here's my first mistake, and I've thought about it a lot. I could have turned around right there and gone back up to the shelter, which had 4 walls and a door. It was uphill, and I was tired, and I had a truck 2 miles below me. So I kept walking down, and I told myself somebody was being rude. Then I stopped, and they took one more step before they stopped too. I stood there working out what that meant. Something behind you stops late because it's reacting to you. But I hadn't heard this one lag anywhere. It had been in perfect time with me the whole way, which meant it wasn't behind me at all. It was slightly ahead, and when I stopped, it finished a step I hadn't taken yet. I turned around. 8 inches of clean snow in every direction and 1 line of my own prints going back up toward the shelter. Nothing else. I tested it after that because I needed to be wrong. I walked 10 paces and stopped short. Same thing. 1 extra step, then nothing. I changed my pace, slow then fast, and it changed with me. Then I did the thing that actually settled it. I stepped 20 yards off my own line into knee-deep powder, which is miserable and pointless, and no hiker on earth would follow you into it. It came to, still a half pace out, still on my left. I got my camera out and photographed the track line, front and back. Then I got back on my own prints and started down. 20 minutes later, I noticed the doubling. My prints were still there, but inside some of them there was a second impression. Not beside, inside. Somebody had come down behind me and put their feet in my holes, and where the fit wasn't clean, you could see the edge of a longer boot. 10 minutes after that, my trail forked. My own prints, the ones I'd made walking up that morning, split into 2 lines. One went down the pass the way I'd come. The other angled east toward a drainage that dead ends in a cliff band. Both of them looked like my boots. I took the right one. It cost me 2 hours of standing at every fork after that, arguing with myself. And I came off the pass well after dark, and by the time I reached the truck, I couldn't feel my hands well enough to get the key in the door. I lost most of the feeling in 2 fingers on my right hand. That's permanent. I never filed the report. I got as far as the observations box twice and stopped both times. Somebody else collected that register in the spring, a colleague of mine, going through the winter logs, and he mentioned it to me months later like it was a filing error. There are 2 entries for February the 14th. Mine, in my handwriting, with my time, and 1 line under it. No name. Just a time, 20 minutes after mine. Quick one before the next account. Are you listening at home, at work, or on the road right now? Drop it in the comments. And if you want more of these, hit subscribe. We're pushing for 10,000 before the end of the month. 3 days after this happened, a boat turned up 6 miles downstream, sitting upright in an eddy, tied off to a cottonwood root with a clean knot above the waterline. The man it belonged to had not tied it. He'd dragged it onto gravel 4 miles upstream and walked away from it. Here's how it got there. 15 years on the river in Big Bend, and I'd run that same survey every October for 9 of them. Count deadfall, note the channel, be back at the truck by 2. I put in before sunrise, dragged the boat 6 feet onto dry gravel at the mouth of a side canyon, and walked in about 4 miles along the bank. Dead calm. The water was flat enough to read the canyon walls off it, and honestly, that's the only reason any of this happened. On a normal day, there's chop, and you never look at the river that way. I caught movement on my left and read it as my own reflection. Except my own reflection was already there. There were 2. I stopped. Both stopped. I looked at the bank, gravel, reeds, 200 feet of limestone going straight up, and nobody on any of it. So I tested it, and this is the part I've never gotten past. I raised my right hand. It raised its left, which is correct, and for about 2 seconds I had an explanation. Then I waved. It didn't. It held the arm where I'd put it, and lowered it a beat after I lowered mine. I photographed the water. There's a dark shape about 4 feet left of my own reflection. Nothing on the bank to cast it. Sitting astride forward of me rather than level. Then I turned around and started back down, and here's my bad decision, and I want to be clear it was mine. 2 miles down, the bank runs out and you cross a gravel bar to pick it up on the far side. I got out onto the bar and it wasn't beside me anymore. It was ahead, 40 feet out on the flat water, facing the direction I had to walk. I could have sat down on that gravel and waited. Somebody comes down that river eventually. But not in October, not that stretch, and I knew that. And what I actually wanted was to be at my truck by 2 like every other year. So I walked past it with my eyes on the rock. And when I picked the bank up on the far side and finally looked, it was beside me again. Half a step out front, like it had never moved. I reached the mouth around 11 and the boat was gone. The drag marks were still there and they ran the wrong direction back into the water. 11 miles out on foot along a canyon bank in boots meant for standing in a boat. Picked up on the road near midnight. My feet were bad enough that I was off the schedule 2 weeks. Now, here's the thing I have to be fair about. There was a man in that canyon. There must have been. Somebody pushed my boat into the river, and somebody caught it 6 miles down and tied it off, and a knot is a person. Nobody I've talked to disagrees. I can explain nearly all of it that way. The boat, the knot, even the feeling of being walked with, if I'm generous with myself about how tired I was. What I can't explain is the water, because whoever he was, he'd have had to be standing on that bank to put a reflection on it. And I looked at that bank. Every time, there was never anybody on it. 8 years as a law enforcement ranger in the Smokies, and that night was about as routine as the job gets. 2 groups camped too close together. Music, somebody escalated it. 20 minutes and both parties agreed they'd been unreasonable. Then I started the 10-minute walk back to my truck on a trail I'd done 100 times. Headlamp off, which sounds reckless and isn't. Old growth at dusk holds more light than people expect if you know the ground, and I'd rather have my eyes adjusted than a cone of white in front of me. Radio in my left hand out of habit. Body camera still running because I hadn't stopped it after the call, and that's the only reason any of this exists. Something walked beside me for the first half mile and I didn't notice, and I'm honest about why. It wasn't quiet. It was landing in the same instant my boots did, so what I heard was my own footsteps sounding a little heavier than usual. My brain filed it and moved on. Then I caught a root and went down onto my hands. My rhythm broke. Whatever was beside me didn't break with it. One clean footfall in the leaf litter a half pace to my right, then nothing. I got up onto my knees and stayed there, and half a mile of ordinary sound rearranged itself. I held still. It took one more step, then it stopped too. I waited a minute and started walking again, slowly because standing there wasn't getting me to the truck. It came with me. So I tested it, shortened my stride, lengthened it, then stopped on the wrong foot mid-step. The kind of broken rhythm you can't predict because I wasn't deciding it more than half a second ahead myself. It matched every one. Not late, not adjusting. It changed when I changed, on the same beat. That's where I stopped being able to tell myself it was an animal. And then I did the thing I've spent 3 years wishing I hadn't. I keyed my radio and said, out loud, "Who's there?" Something answered from a half pace to my right, in my own voice, using my own words. I ran. I don't remember deciding to. I got maybe 60 yards before I went down hard on a root ball with my right hand out in front of me. Shattered the wrist in 2 places. Surgery, a plate, 4 months off duty, and I still can't fully rotate it. The incident report says I fell responding to a call. That's what I told them, because the true version ends a career. I listened to the file once, months later, with the wrist still in a brace and my wife asleep upstairs. I've not played it since. My transmission is on it, keyed and clear. And underneath it, off mic, picked up from the side by the camera's own microphone, is the same sentence. It starts about half a second earlier than mine and finishes half a second earlier. It didn't repeat me. It got there first. That's not the part I warn people about. The file runs another 11 seconds after I get the truck door shut. You can hear the door, the engine, my breathing. And at 9 seconds, over the engine, inside the cab, something says my name. If you got this far, subscribe to Obscure Nights. That's all I'll ask. Three rangers, a snowfield above the tree line, a canyon at dawn, an old-growth trail at dusk. 3 different parks, 3 different years, and no connection between any of them. A stride in fresh snow that opened up a foot and a half wider than a woman's legs can reach, and closed again after 30 feet. A second reflection with nothing on the bank to cast it, sitting a stride forward of the man it walked beside. An 11-minute recording with 2 voices on it, both belonging to the same ranger, one of them arriving early. And in all 3, the same small detail, which is the one none of them can put down. It never stopped when they stopped. Every one of them describes the extra step, the single footfall that came after they had already gone still. Something following you stops late because it is reacting to you. None of these stopped late for that reason. Lesson 1. If something is keeping pace with you, break your rhythm on purpose. Change your stride, stop short, speed up, stop again. All 3 of these people learned what they were dealing with the moment the pattern broke, and 2 of them learned it by accident. Do it deliberately and do it early. Lesson 2. Photograph your own tracks, not only the thing you think you saw. Bryn found her answer in a photo of the ground behind her. If something is out there with you and you cannot see it, the evidence is very often in what you leave behind, rather than in what you are looking at. Lesson 3. Do not test it. Aldridge raised his hand, waved, and got a response that has cost him 5 years of sleep, and the information he gained did not help him in any way. Curiosity is the thing that turns an encounter into an interaction. Lesson 4. Do not speak first, and do not answer if something speaks to you. Marchetti keyed his radio on reflex and got his own voice back out of the dark, ahead of him. Whatever is walking beside you does not need any more of you than it already has. Thank you for trusting Obscure Nights with these accounts. If you have an encounter of your own, our submission email is in the channel bio. We read every single one. This is Obscure Nights, where the cases nobody talks about get told the way they actually happened. Good night.